Well, Tuju, I believe we have the echo issues sorted. Once again, my apologies for that. You are responding to the question on why it took this long for a PG to be called for the Jubilee Party.
Well, for various reasons. There was a perception by some of the people who were, in a way, agitating for a PG that it was going to be a way for them to intimidate the president to shy away from the things that he had promised to do. The president was very clear during his inauguration in 2017. He was going to fight graft and was going to try and unite this country. The handshake was about uniting this country. Fighting of graft, it didn't matter who the graft cases touched, whether it was Rafael Tuju or anybody else. He said it to Kenyans and promised to Kenyans that he's going to fight graft. So when some people may probably think that they've got a majority of members of parliament which will support them, when they come for a PG meeting, that they can, in a way, intimidate the president or twist his arms so that then he can back off from those things that he had pledged to tell the country, they rang the wrong number.
You mentioned the issue on those who think they have majority numbers, because the consequent decision that came out of the PG yesterday is still in this dispute by those who seem to have been angered by it, including Kipchumba Murkomen, former majority leader, as well as Susan Kihika. Just for the sake of our audience, take us through the process for such a decision to be taken and ratified by the party. What does it take?
Well, in terms of changes in the National Assembly or in Senate, the party has its methodology, but we cede that to the standing orders in Parliament, which requires that there should be a quorum. And all we needed was to get a quorum, and if anybody else felt that they had the numbers, then they should have brought the numbers to State House and prosecute their case there.
What's the number that forms the quorum, and did we get to it at State House yesterday?
Yes, the number that forms the quorum should be 19 and a half. We got 20.
As previous parliamentary group meetings, there have been pictorial evidence that it happens. We've not seen any on this. Is there any explanation around that, perhaps to just address this issue once and for all?
Come again? I didn't get your question.
Firstly, on when other PGs have been held, there have been pictures, evidence that indeed a meeting happened and a decision was taken. This time round, we didn't see much of that. Perhaps to just ease or put this matter to ease, why not release something of the same after this particular PG that happened at State House yesterday?
Nobody's going to dictate to us on how we conduct our PGs and put up shows.
All right, well, no dictation of that, but then with members feeling that you're pushing them to the wall, questioning whether this indeed is a democratic party, what would be your response for that? Because members now, of course, those opposed to some of the decisions that have been taken by the party, feel that there's some high-handedness or dictatorial tendencies cropping up in the party. What would be your response to that?
I'm amazed. I'm serving as Secretary General at the pleasure of the President. Nobody elected me. We are in a transitional clause, which is within our Constitution, page Article 33. Those who are serving now are those who have been removed from the positions of leadership in the Senate. Nobody elected them. Through consultation, their names were presented, and they went through the same process that we went through the State House. In State House on Monday. Their names were proposed, and if there was no objection, they were allowed to sail through. So really, they should know that they know they were serving at the pleasure of the party leader, and when the point reached that they felt they no longer wanted to serve the party leader, They should not have gone into the Senate or into Parliament and essentially be very disrespectful to the leadership that put them there. That's number one. Number two, as a majority leader or a majority whip, you represent the government in the House. When you start criticizing that government, then the honorable thing they should do is to resign. Say, I can no longer work for this government, therefore I've handed in my resignation and I'm moving on. We'll have a lot of respect for them. But then when they stay there, being driven in GK cars, having government privileges wherever they go, and they go into that Senate and say they abuse the same government. They start asking, what type of government is this? Nowhere in the world, nowhere, forget about Kenya, nowhere in the world, whether it's in the United States or whether it is in Europe, the first thing they should do is to be honorable enough and say, I resign. They should not wait to be pushed out.
So then, do we expect the same thing to happen at the National Assembly? Do we expect that the party will call for a PG for the National Assembly and some of these tough decisions you're talking about being taken against, one, those in leadership positions at the National Assembly as well as those heading committees therein?
Well, definitely the president has been very patient and the party has been very patient. But we've reached a point that we cannot take any more indiscipline in the party. In fact, one of the things we are considering now is that some of the members of parliament who have been acting out of turn, we're going to start a process of recall.
You're going to start a process of recall. Who exactly are we targeting, if we'd be privy to that information? What crimes, like today you mentioned, insubordination for those who, and gross misconduct for those that were handed letters by the disciplinary committee. What are we targeting for the recall? Well,
if somebody has been acting out of turn, is criticizing the very party that he hanged or he or she hanged on its coattails to get to Parliament. All of them, we campaigned for them. They claimed they were supporting this president. And once they got the opportunity to become members of Parliament because of being associated with this president, then they decide to change their mind. We have to look at them again as our members of Parliament.
A number of decisions taken lately by the parties seems to be in dispute, not just the decision taken yesterday for the Senate leadership. We are seeing this one on disciplinary action against the 5 nominated senators. There was the list of those in the National Management Committee. Every decision that the Jubilee Party seems to be taken remains in dispute from different sides within the party. Can this party really hold, being the ruling party? Does it inspire confidence anymore?
Well, this country is very litigious. Even if you fire a domestic worker, they may decide to go to the unions or go to court. I mean, this is a very litigious country. And some of these people do not have any honor. They will not step aside respectfully and say, okay, fine. If this government does not want me to represent them in the parliament or in the Senate, let me step aside. I mean, if it was me, I mean, you can't serve the president by force, because this government belongs to President Uhuru. And you cannot insist that you represent his interests in Parliament or in the Senate by force. So you go to court so that you can continue to serve him by force? Is that making sense? But if they want to go that way, you can't stop them. We're a free country. People can go to court.
At the Jubilee Party, finally, just before I let you go, now getting into post-election parts, we saw one with KANU that is also under dispute, and at the courts currently, there's word that you might be entering one with Wiper. Talk to us about that. What's the end game for this?
Well, one of the things that the president said, and I've said it before, is that he wants to bring this country together. In fact, it is not only KANU that we're going to be discussing with on how do we bring the country together? How do we run this country together? We all belong here. And we came from a very divisive election in which some parts of the country were even imagining or thinking or, considering the possibility of secession. It was on television, it was on radio and everywhere. Now, this president made a very deliberate decision that he doesn't want this nation to fall apart in his hands. And really, it is our responsibility to make sure that we bring this country together. So, I don't know, I can't understand when people start refusing that Kenyans should come together. So if KANU has joined hands with Jubilee for the sake of this country, where does that hurt you? But let me go back. The post-election coalition agreement we have with KANU is essentially a copy of the pre-election memorandum that we had with KANU. The only mistake we did that time is that there was a clerical error. It was not registered with the Register of Political Parties, so it was out of time. We have used exactly the same, and in fact, in Parliament and in the Senate, we work together with KANU. They chair some of the committees, both in the Senate and in the National Assembly. So there's nothing new about it. It's only that we formalized something which should have been formalized earlier.
So, just to wind it up, do you think the Jubilee Party is going to survive this? You talk about President Uhuru Kenyatta not wanting the country to fall apart, but the party seems to be falling apart. Will it survive this storm?
The country is more important than the party, and the president himself has said that before. I can repeat it that here as the Secretary General, that the country and the unity of the party, the unity of the country is more important than the party. Nobody is going to blackmail this president that Jubilee will fall apart, and therefore he should concentrate on making sure that Jubilee does not fall apart at the expense of the country. It is nonsense.
Thank you, SG, for speaking to us tonight. We appreciate your time here on KTN Prime. Secretary General, Jubilee Party, Raphael Tuju, speaking about the latest happenings within the party. Seemingly a purge. We'll be keeping you up to date. And of course, our big Q is still on that. Should Jubilee Party dismiss the senators who boycott